Hello, motivators. Timothy McCain here, and I'm thankful that you had decided to listen to another podcast. This past week has been a week where many people have been going back and forth with the topic of forgiveness. And so I'm sure that you all have been aware of the um, hug that happened in the courtroom as a young man hugged the police officer who shot and killed his own brother. And so was after that she got her sentence, and in the courtroom he came and asked the judge permission to hug her, embrace her, and he hugged her. Said that he forgave her, and then spoke to some other words. And so it was a hug that definitely divided a lot of people attention. It's a very controversial hug, caused a lot of controversy, and as well as it created a bunch of conversation. And so we always hear about forgiveness. We hear about we should forgive and things of that nature. If you grew up in the Christian faith, you hear about how important and vital forgiveness is, and how the Lord forgives us, and all this nature. But today I want to talk to you about what forgiveness is not. And so, to be honest with you, I myself, I had some tug of war inside of what was going on, and I do believe in the power of forgiveness, and I understand why it's necessary and what it is. But for the shock factor, what really happened, as I will try to put myself in that young man's shoes, I don't know if I could have done it. To be honest with you, I don't know if I could have done it. I would like to say that I would have done the exact same thing that he has done in that particular manner. I don't know what is going on behind the scenes, or how the process and the conversation he had with him, within himself and with God and all the above. And I think that the action in of itself would cause a lot of us, and should cause a lot of us, to really evaluate. But what I was playing tug of war with was how I really did not want that moment to be the stamp as if, oh, well, this case is closed and the conversation is over. And so, no, the hug and the act of forgiveness, and that's why I believe this podcast is so important. And because maybe your situation and your dynamic, of course, is not like this example, but many of you have been in a situation where you need to forgive, but there's a misconception about forgiveness. So the reason why I was concerned about this particular thing was not that the young man released forgiveness, because that's important. What I was concerned is how people don't understand, or may not understand, what forgiveness is. And so when he embraced her, he was not saying that what you done to my family or how you took my brother's life was okay. He was not telling her that her actions are resolved, or that wasn't a big deal, that's not what forgiveness is. And that's why I'm making this podcast, because I know there's people who hurt you, people who made fun of you, people who betrayed you. There's family members who walked out of you, people who were never there, people who gave you your words. There are people that you have hurt as well that's waiting for that forgiveness. But forgiveness is not condoning. When someone say, I forgive you, or when you're releasing forgiveness, or you are playing tug of war with the issue and the bondage, the bondage emotionally that you were in through all the pain that you walked through when you were young, or that mom and dad that was never there, that dad who walked out, that divorce had happened, or that bully had made fun of you, whatever the thing may be, that you holding on to, not forgiving that person. But is happening is that you're, in some ways, causing yourself even more harm. Let me tell you what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not saying that what you've done to me is okay. I feel like I have this conversation many, 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 many times, because forgiveness is important. Forgiveness is for you far before it's for the other person. Forgiveness releases you. Forgiveness is an antidote for you. Forgiveness is a key to release you from that shackle. Because oftentimes people will drop an anchor at the moment of the crisis, the moment of the pain, the moment of the difficulty. They will say, man, you hurt me back here, so I'm going to stay back here. And so I'm going to make residence at the place of conflict, the place of pain, and I'm going to build my house at the moment of affliction. And so because of that nature, you may have met people whose their very identity is found in their pain. Who they are is found in their issue. Who they are is found in what has happened to them. And so I am not negating or taking away and because or someone's pain, because best believe, even in this situation with that young man who embraced that cop, there needs to be further conversations after that. When he said, I forgive you, that does not mean, oh, let's not talk about this no more. It does not mean that, oh, let's act like it's never happened at all. That is so far from the truth, so far from it. The conversation needs to continue. But what happened is that he was saying, in spite of what happened, I'm releasing forgiveness. I believe that hug was more for her, was more for himself than for her. Forgiveness is not condoning. It's not saying what you done to me is okay. It's not saying how you hurt me is okay. I'm saying this over and over and over again until you get it. It's not saying that the way you treated me was okay. No, forgiveness is for you. When you say I forgive you, when you finally release forgiveness, you are uprooting yourself, your emotion, your pain. You're uprooting who you are in the present from that that crisis yesterday. Forgiveness is for you. And so I encourage you to walk in a state of forgiveness. Let me continue to share about what forgiveness is not. When you say, I forgive you, there's some relationships in your life, some people you meet in your life, that just because you forgave them doesn't mean you should reconcile with them. Forgiveness does not mean reconnecting. Forgiveness doesn't always mean mending a relationship. Oftentimes, forgiveness is releasing you from that place of pain and moving on. And so I think this conversation is a lot more lengthier than just a Twitter or a tweet and just a one-line thing, an absolute statement. Yes, I know where you read in Scripture, the Bible says, keep no records of wrongs, talking about all this different love. But I believe there's wisdom as well as understanding that when you forgive that person, especially the person that's constantly and oftentimes harmed you, or if it's a toxic situation, toxic circumstance, to go back into that and expect them to be any different without any change, family, is not wise at all. So there's some relationships that you have to, you should fight to mend. You should fight to restore. There's conflict in your marriage and conflict in your relationships with your husband or your wife. That's truly a relationship that you should strive to mend, to restore, to build. You know what I mean? The conflict, crisis issue happen to everybody. And so we don't run the moment something bad happens. We don't run apart. We run together. We fight together. We fight for each other, not fight each other. You know what I'm saying? And so there are some dynamics where the relationship should be mended, but that dad who walked out on you, and you think when you were 3 years old, and all of a sudden at the age of 32, walk back in your life as if nothing has ever happened. Listen, it's all right to forgive. Remember, forgiving is not condoning. But do you need to feel like you're forced to reconcile that relationship? Maybe not. That ugly divorce that happened. You know what I mean? And so that happened in y'all's marriage. When you say I forgave you or forgive you after it's all said and done, you know what I mean? Does that mean that you have to forget everything that happened and act like nothing's ever happened and forget no records and then just get back together? No, not necessarily. You know what I'm saying? So there's conversation that must happen even after someone say, I forgive you. You know what I'm saying? Forgiveness is not condoning. Forgiveness is not saying what you done to me is okay. And forgiveness doesn't mean trust happens. Trust is healed. So I read through Scripture, and while I read, and again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'll tell you that first and foremost. But when I read through Scripture, I read how forgiveness, we're called to forgive, but I don't read any scriptures where I'm called to trust. So that person who hurt you, oftentimes what happens, this is what I believe the reason why people are slow to forgive, because I believe people put forgiveness and trust in the same sentence. The person who hurt you in a consistent manner or whatnot, and they say, hey, I thought you forgave me. But they expect trust to be mended at the exact same time as a word. But again, trust takes time to build. Trust takes time to earn. And sometimes you just can't get trust back. So that's why it's very important to make sure you live your life upright. Make sure you live your life treating each other with your very best, because you never know, family. You never know how hard it is to mend and reconcile a relationship. So one more time, family, for the people in the back, forgiveness is not condoning. When you say, I forgive you, you're not saying what you've done to me is okay. I'm not saying to walk around and hug every enemy. I'm not saying to walk around and hug every person who hurt you. That was an incredible example of an act of love. an act of grace, an act of faith that young man did, that definitely and truly caused a bunch of uproar. And I really encourage people to not simply just brush through this dynamic, this situation, as if there's no further conversation that needs to happen. Forgiveness is great, but there still is healing afterwards. You know what I'm saying? And so, motivators, I encourage you to evaluate your heart, evaluate your life, because I believe there's some people in your life that you have been harboring unforgiveness, thinking that I'm going to hold on to this to hurt the other person. But it's a Russian roulette. Every time you do that, you're spinning the wheel of the revolver, hoping that you won't get shot. You know what I mean? It's a dangerous game to play. Harboring unforgiveness is self-harm to you. Weaponizing unforgiveness is a dangerous thing to do, especially when you think, I'm not going to forgive that person because I'm going to hurt them. But once again, releasing forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Releasing forgiveness brings you healing. And so oftentimes we will weaponize our pain, we'll weaponize our conflict, we'll weaponize our issue, and we will live there. Family, pack your bags, change your address, move on, past that place of pain. I'm not saying forgetting it. Remembering it is necessary, so you don't walk through the same thing. I'm not saying reconcile a relationship all the time. I'm not saying that person should demand trust all the time. They should earn it. What I'm saying, but what I am saying is this: is that forgiveness is vital, forgiveness is necessary, and forgiveness is powerful for you. If that relationship can and should be reconciled, if there is a future outside of that place of conflict, if it's not some like deep crisis and things of nature, of course. But again, I don't know the dynamics of your situation. I dare not you to feel like this podcast is some sort of way, a permission slip for you not to reconcile or restore a relationship that needs to be restored, or the permission slip to say, let me stay when you need to leave. You know what I'm saying? I don't know your dynamics, and I would love to maybe chat with you a little longer. That's why you should definitely go to my social media, go to my Instagram, and follow me at Timothy underscore McCain at Instagram. You know what I'm saying? And so, or Twitter, Timothy CW McCain. We can definitely chat and whatnot. But family, forgiveness is necessary, and forgiveness is for you. Please stop trying to shoot yourself through unforgiveness, thinking it's going to hurt the other person. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be bleeding out, putting your whole life on park, where the other person has moved on. Don't weaponize unforgiveness. One more time, again, for everybody else who wasn't listening, forgiveness is not condoning. It's not saying what you done to me is okay. It's not saying that the pain, the wound, the scars, the issue, the deep pain was okay or not relevant. Of course it is. There's some healing that has to happen even after the confession of forgiveness. And so, but what we saw with that young man who embraced that police officer who killed his own brother, that was an act of forgiveness that we should all, in some capacity, aspire to do in our everyday life. But I want to be very clear about that moment. Very, very, very clear. That does not mean that the case was closed. That doesn't mean that the conversation should end. That does not mean that what he said to that lady that was okay, you killed my brother. That's not what he said. In spite of what it all, family, that hug was for her, but was for him. That embrace, that conversation. Can you imagine how life transforming that moment was for that woman? Man, I pray that she will never be the same again. And whatever moment in her life that there's a future in for her, that she will never forget that moment, and will extend the same grace that she was extended. And so, man, God gives us an incredible example about forgiveness as through his own son, Jesus. And we're called to live like that, and live for the Lord, and strive to have that character. And so I pray and hope that all of us can aspire to do just that, to be more like Jesus every single day. But you best believe the struggle is very real. So one more time, this is the truth about forgiveness. Forgiving somebody is not saying what you've done to me is okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust is immediately granted. That stuff takes time. When that betrayal happens or that letdown happens, that person to demand trust again, they got it twisted. So anyway, there should be a conversation even after the place of conflict. Motivators, do me a favor. Follow my YouTube channel, TM Motivations. I got a lot of great videos on there that you need to see. Also a video with this podcast as well. I want you to be the best versions of you possibly can be. My heart for this podcast and this channel and TM Motivations in general is for all of it to be an oasis of hope and desert of hopelessness. I got an awesome book coming out in a couple of months, and I'm actually going to share with you in a little bit in a couple of podcasts about it. It's absolutely incredible, and I believe it's going to help transform your life. This is, family, the greatest opportunity you have right now that you will never have again in your life. Don't waste it. Don't squander it. Don't gamble it. This is your chance. So motivators, I want you to walk in forgiveness, but understanding what forgiveness really is. All right, y'all. Holla at you later. Peace.